I want to welcome everyone today coming to One Breath Rising's second Sunday series. We are blessed today to have poet Carolyn Joyner as our feature. And I'm going to read you Carolyn's bio, and we're going to listen to some of her wonderful work. And at the end, we are going to have a Q&A, and I encourage everybody to get your questions ready because we usually have a very lively Q&A. Okay. Carolyn Joyner, a Washington, D.C. poet, uses contemporary and traditional form to examine life's themes. Her work has been featured in various literary magazines and anthologies. Among them, Revise the Psalm, work celebrating the writing of Gwendolyn Brooks. Pleiades, Obsidian, Gathering Ground, Full Bleed, ArLiJo, Beltway Poetry Quarterly, Plume Poetry 10, and Little Patuxent Review. She is a former WritersCorps instructor, volunteer poetry workshop leader for the DC Public Library and the River of Words Community Project. And she has a Master's of Arts degree in creative writing from the Johns Hopkins University. She is a Canem and Hurston-Wright Foundation Fellow and has been awarded Art Fellowship grants from the DC Commission on the Arts and the Humanities and the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. Her debut collection, Imagine His Mother Witnessing, is forthcoming in 2025. And I know we're all going to be looking forward to that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Carolyn Joyner.
Thank you, EJ. Much gratitude, actually, for this forum and the opportunity to present some poems. You know, the writing life, the writerly life can be a very lonely one. And I always embrace community because we need it so much. I thought that I'd start off with some fairly recent to old poems and then move to some of those that are in my forthcoming book that hopefully will be out this summer. That's the plan. In 2021, Desmond Beach did a visual artwork that was entitled Say Their Names. And this ekphrastic poem was generated by that piece of art. Caught in the erasure of body, language, identity, memory across intersections of past, present, future, we slip between time, do the work of dying in the silence around sound, become the blue flame burning black, rolled inward from self's edge, to exist within an existence invisible to public eye. There is no redemptive hand to reach inside our necks, restore crushed larynges, rip off the 7-knot collar they wear. No voice to shout, heal, but ours. Oguns, giving to command to keep on a walking, say their names. That one was fairly recently. And because we will be celebrating the life of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. this month, and then moving into the 1 month set aside for us in February, Black History Month, I wanted to share this particular poem. There are a couple of lines in here that were taken from reports that several years ago, the Los Angeles police would radio each other upon spotting a Black person walking down the street, gorilla in the mist. And they also would sing a song to the Lucky Strike cigarette commercial. They substitute the words, let's shoot a nigga tonight. So those are quotes from that report, okay? Alto moon choirs, 1. The hammers cocked on roads ahead, cops be singing, let's shoot a nigga tonight. Gorilla in the mist, gorilla in the mist. Big Mama's pipe-scratched voice turns up the loudness. There's chains, child, then there's other kind of chains. Eyes in slits, she declares, no matter you can't see them, they's always there. Memory waves its swollen flag. Boy warriors hunting in the bush. Uncle Carver, Aunt Annie Mae, recaptured, sold back. Freddie, boy's crime. Living, wow, black. 2. His only crime, living while black. Riding Agoon winds cough from Guinea Gulf ports. Tracking Gabon gold dust through time-dead centuries. Cross today's pockmarked chic, shepherded by Orisha's current of the dead in the living, sweet Jamaican cockpits, Gullah Sea Islands, muddy Mississippi riverbeds, East Baltimore ghettos, roll and break cross separate and unequal ground. Return Kula, Olata, Ida B, Fannie Lou, Malidoma ghostings. Alto moon choirs to sing, ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. Songs in backs and thighs. Trees by the water never to be moved, they're not moving in the moving. 3. The not movings in the moving. Night, the south, north 2, east, west. Blue-skinned legs catch Shango fire. Forged treetop highways over palm and oak sycamore make air speak staccato. Metal steel runs feet forward, no jump back, step aside. Ibibio alongside Igbo, Shamba side Fonte, house side field, suit side jumper jackets, pump, pound, curious patterns into dark of lighted, history's clay-covered edges. Juba dance them to its center. With Ogun's machete, they make way through bitumen, crafted knots, Jim and Jane Crow's de facto de jure, cops singing gorilla in the mist, gorilla in the mist. The hammers cocked on roads below. 4. The hammers cocked on roads below. Say the hammers sure enough cocked on roads below. Mr. Charlie got his hands in my pockets, can't pay my dues to life no more. Fingers claw with no mercy. Nothing's left to adore. Charlie claws with no mercy. Ain't nothing left to adore. Don't need 7 coils round my neck. Been hanged by his hang-ups. The who and me's down pressed to the floor. Can't sit in soul seats. Say, can't sit in my own soul seat. Tap out its rhythm, rock its hoodoo beat. Used to pay my dues to life and still have change to spare, but I've been hoodwinked out of my nationhood. This is too much for me to bear. Gonna find me some clothes without pockets. Clothes the man can't get his hands in. Say, I'm gonna find me some clothes without pockets the man can't get his hands in, so I can be the self I am instead of the one I've been. Good Lord willing, I can be born again. A born again African. That's right. A born again African. 5. A born again African. Keep on a walking past trees with gouged eye garnish. Tallahassee's elephantine foot. A Texas head left for buzzards. Nightsticks crushed larynx. Severed spine. Keep on a talking on up to freedom land. Oya exhales, leaping Africans into Agoon winds, returns the dead to the living, unstitches fear, scatters its teeth like milkweed. Oh, Mary, don't you weep. Tell Martha not to mourn. That is Black History Month. Sometimes we tire of being blue and gray, so I decided to pick another color, and it was red. So feeling red, okay? Kinky and cool, saucy and irreverent, a little wicked even, yet mesmerizing. A blend of Call Back the Dead red smoldering in a cognac and cashmere voice, and 5-inch stilettos spiking the somber dance floor. An aroma of ginger with whiffs of mango chutney and cinnamon at its edges. Red as in, yo, baby, you rocking those jeans. Talking about the delicious hugging and apple shine. The blush in freshly spanked cheeks, a sacred sister giggling deep, speaking in wild mimosa tongue. I'm that ribbon, kiting a brazen breeze, silken and surprising. My body's rooms home to a hellcat itch to prey at the moon in the daytime. Boast, I let the dogs out. Unbleached American gorilla dogs, tethered to the cave of my rape-colored skin, barking house on fire red, about to leap. You know, sometimes poems take you places you don't even know you're going to go. But we're advised to follow where the poem takes us. Okay, so that's one of those things. The next one is a it's a take on it's drawn from the narrative in Jazz for Beginners. It's not exactly a cento. Oh my God. It's not exactly a cento, but it's excuse me. I'm sorry. This is not good. This is not good. Okay, I apologize for that. I don't know how to turn these phones off. That's my cordless. Okay. Birth and Death of the Cool. It was late 40s. It was cats from LA to Leningrad wanting to make that bird sound. It was everybody wanting to be genius. Only a matter of time till counter-revolution set in. Miles assembled a nonne for a 3-week gig at the Royal Roost, Broadway and 47th. Cut a record a year later. French horns, delicately woven solos, not explosive and bluesy like Bird's Bop. Ethereal and drifting. A music whose sound knew its time had come to give birth to the cool. After all, who could play faster, higher, harder than Dizzy? So Miles played lower, slower, cooler than anybody else. Hired guys who didn't play as if they heard a starting pistol, guys who blended Leicester's poetic rhapsodies with Bird, the works of European classicals like Debussy with Harlem classicals like Ellington. There were other rebels, but Miles, the creator, almighty minister of cool, was in the forefront. He was also in the thick of what murdered it, hard bop, and in the thick of a habit murdering him, heroin. By the mid-50s, cool jazz, all elegance and lyricism at first, felt uptight. Was no contest for Memphis white boys' trousers with jazz's once own fire, or overheated boppers who kept on pumping even though cool school hogged the spotlight. Then Charlie Bird Parker died. Outhouse walls all over America screamed, "Bird lives." He was a god, left behind great music, heroin addicts, a big void, free jazz to open endless ways to be with a genius so big it left no room for future players. Like James Joyce, Bird had pretty much burned down the field he'd set free. There had to be another way. There was, but he was still addicted to heroin. I know, EJ, when you want to give me a signal to wind it down, please feel free to do so, okay?
Okay.
Okay. I guess I have to do this Well, as I say, since we're celebrating different things and also trying to negotiate life under this new scenario we're dealing with, I'd like to still share a couple of more older poems. This one is called Swollen Plaits and Stiff Ponytails. It's very old, but as I say, as we're moving towards Black History Month, swollen plaits and stiff ponytails. We knew nothing of Lampreyd's luminous nocturnal members of the beetle family, the precise system of signals that bring the sexes together. The rhythmic flash, the pattern, the flicker of high yellow against the shadow of dusk. The fireflies entering, but even more, it's leaving, with a tiny lantern attached to the underside of its belly gone. To us, they were simply lightning bugs. The chance to adorn fingers and wrists with diamonds, give ourselves something that we had never had. Pretty belonged to someone else, not colored girls with swollen plaits and stiff ponytails, skin too brown to be Rapunzel in the school play. This is for Middle Eastern children, and it was written a while back too. It's a pantoum. I think some of you have certainly heard this one, but it's still applicable, of course, unfortunately, with all the horror going on. Ghost Pride. 5,000 are returned to the earth each month, bombed to their graves by remote assassins from cyberspace who can't smell their blood. Each month, bombed to their graves, children turn soldiers into heroes who can't smell their blood, see faces they brand on shelter walls. Children turn soldiers into heroes, men and women fitted with blinders who can't see faces they brand on shelter walls, the rotting heaps casting shadows. Men and women fitted with blinders wonder about the innocent children, rotting heaps casting shadows, babies swallowed in DU dust jackets. They wonder about the innocent children born with no brain, only one eye, babies swaddled in DU dust jackets, squeezed against mothers' sunken breasts. Born with no brain, only one eye, in a land where leaves are left to rustle. Squeezed against mothers' sunken breasts, they're the only wilted blossoms to bend sun's light. In a land where no leaves are left to rustle, mother's ghost pride shushes sobs of dying children, the only wilted blossoms to bend sun's light, answer the cry of scrounging dogs in suffering's belly. Mother's ghost pride shushes sobs of dying children, among the thousands returned to earth, who answer the cry of scrounging dogs in suffering's belly, ripped open by remote assassins from cyberspace. My forthcoming book, entitled, as EJ has told us, Imagine His Mother Witnessing, is hopefully you'll be able to have it in your hand this summer. I hope I have it in my hand. But I wanted to share some of those pieces because these are newer pieces and pieces that you will be hopefully reading very soon. The book actually shares perspectives on the experience of the illness and dying of my son. And it's from a mother's perspective, but it focuses on life rather than the grief of death, and attempts to examine a lot of thoughts, reflections, and feelings. On the day before, he begs into the night, "Sit me up, Ma, sit me up." His raspy, broken record voice still crisp in my head. He is sitting up. I can't get him any higher. Give him the breath he feels slipping away. My lips part for words I have none. Reassure without them. Think somehow I can use my breath to make his. Mama's got you, I think to myself, like it's magical, a mantra. Mama's got you. That night, lying in the bed next to his, a neighbor's TV, low tones of "The sun will come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar." An image flashes, bloody fingers scratching for a long gone bottom dollar to place a bet already made. I still myself. Try to imagine tomorrow, the sun. The signature poem in the book is entitled Imagining Warrior. Imagining Warrior, from which the title was also taken. Imagine him big framed, packed tight, standing a head above his henchmen. Imagine him wearing an extra large boar's tusk helmet, untouched by fury's gusts, his warm bathwater self suited under armor, palming the might of its hand in yours, rugged smile flashing the small gap in his front teeth. Imagine his oak tree legs unyielding to force, clearing thick walls, high fences on a fine steed, saddle made especially for him. Imagine him stumbling upon a narrow tunnel he's compelled to enter, believing its end holds light, finding only deeper darkness. Surprise attack, fierce battle, being pummeled pitilessly day after day, all of his body parts laid open. Imagine him using bone as spear, gristle as shield, while sitting tall in his saddle, not tumbling from his horse, never giving up. Imagine his mother witnessing. That's after Lucille Clifton, Imagining Bear. It was nothing related to the poem, but the essence. Sightings. It's him again, threading his way through the festival crowd on the other side of the street, styling a purple crew neck with Muhammad Ali silk screened in white across his chest. He stops mid-block to survey the scene, bops his head to bass lines thump booming from stage 4 at street's end. I stand where he can see me, flashing a megawatt grin, almost a laugh, anticipating the latest funny story. Wait for him to acknowledge the mother whose house he always stops by whenever he's this close. He starts to cross the street, walk toward me. Midway, he vanishes. 2 weeks ago, I spotted him driving down Georgia Avenue, tried to flag him, but he stared right past me. Didn't see the flailing arms, blue dress he gave me for my birthday flapping the breeze. At night, my longing takes shape, hangs over my bed, awakens me just enough to remind me that he's gone. I want him back. Box all his things instead, give them away, put his authentic leather and woolen Washington football team jacket up for sale. He doesn't know I moved from the house he called home, left his footsteps echo on the stairs, his form peeling away from shadows, walking toward me. Limbo. Today, I didn't cry about my son's dying. Return 5-day-old phone calls, pay my 22 monthly bills, check my 14,546 email messages, dwindle them down. And today I didn't go to the Caribbean Carnival Parade, dance down 30 blocks of Georgia Avenue behind the mud truck with my 5 Trini friends, do the wine with the 10 gorgeous guys who always jump off the truck, get muddy. Today, I didn't make good on my promise to go to Sarah's clothes swap at 3314 Flower. Drink 2 Bloody Marys with the girls, sort the stuff I need to get rid of in my 4 closets so I can go to the swap. Today I didn't. Yesterday keeps picking on it. In the book, there is a section that is a crown of broken sonnets, and they're written in the form of letters. And a crown is 15 sonnets, but I'm just going to share one of the 2 or 3 at the beginning. And the Damon letters, a crown of broken sonnets. Dear Damon, it's the middle of December, the day you left next week. Darkness comes early. The trees are still letting go of their leaves, haven't declared winter. If only I could be like them. Stand bare-boned, naked for months, arms flung open to make way for the new, not afraid of being unable to hide themselves from themselves, others. I'm reminded of your 5 a.m. front porch meditations, sussing truth's heavy hush for what was to come. I never asked what you were thinking. Had you wanted to be like a tree? Did I keep you from talking? Regret begins to fog my rear view. Image your eyes liquid with things unsaid. Dear Damon, regret images your eyes liquid with things unsaid, and mine as well, that I wounded you with circumcision in the nursery, that I let the elders convince me to give you cow's milk instead of my own, that you suffered 3 weeks with mumps when I didn't get you the vaccination. So sorry that I allowed you to eat Fruit Loops, Twinkies, Apple Jacks, that I was away in college on your first birthday, that I didn't always hear you with soft ears. You poo-pooed my regrets, assured me I was top cream. I'm trying not to second guess, but right now, I just want to call my mama, tell her. Dear Damon, right now, I just want to call my mama, tell her, ask her to holler so I can let her know about the pillowcases I found. Still fragrant with your warm bird's nest smell, even after laundering. I love how you insist on being here. Realize I never thought you'd die until you disbelief for 6 months. Mind firewalled heart kept death's flare at bay. By the 7th, guts howl could not be choked. Linens were all I'd have of you to hug. I keep them in this space, palpitating, like a boat in a flood where I hold my breath, wait for grievous waters to calm. Any day now. Those are just 3 of the, those are just excerpts from The Crown of Broken Sonnets, which is section 2 of the book. Lastly, calculating the rightful measure of respect. 1. I wind my way to a cemetery behind a hearse with my son in it. While construction workers bobcat dirt, tourists crowd food trucks for half smokes, waffle fries. Red line riders rush to catch trains, their gray umbrellas, sad notes blooming overhead. Bystanders bop to iPod beats. I'm the only one to hear my noiseless screams for life to stop. Damon Lee IV is gone, his goodness out of reach, and everyone turns away quite leisurely from this disaster. Funeral processions have become ordinary, like grief when it is asked about and we say this or that. Try to explain with words when shrieks are the only answer. 2. A massive knot of thoughts forged by my father's voice in the dining room after family dinner, telling us how people in his day made known their respect for the dead. When a hearse passed, strangers would stop what they were doing and face the procession. He stands at attention, shows us how men placed hats over their hearts, women their hands. Some, he said, would even salute. 3. One by one, we take turns. Gong the saucer-shaped bell with padded mallet. The bereavement counselor calls the name of our lost loved one. We gong, everything stops. Hushed silence for a full minute. It's as if she had rummaged soul's closet, found us wondering how the world can go on without pause when a loved one has just been lost. It's a ritual, she explains, to ease the ache. I don't remember going up to hammer the bell. Just the moment, only for him. Still of the room. EJ, and that's the end. Thanks for your attention. I think she's going to open it up for questions,
Yes, I am.
comments.
First, I want to I want to say your work is extremely moving.
Well, thank you.
It is extremely moving. You capture so much in your words. It has this very cinematic quality to it. So you can actually, when you're talking, like when you were talking about the police and their sayings that they would say, gorilla in the mist, and you can actually visualize that happening. It's really, your work is extremely moving. And I really can't wait for this book to come out.
And that was
that's going to be
an old poem, EJ. So
I know, but even the newer work is like,
it is still current. That's the point.
Yeah, right. So that actually wonderful, wonderful, wonderful work, and we thank you for sharing that with us this afternoon. I do have I have a question in your poem that you talked about Miles and Bird and Dizzy, and I would kind of like to know, what was your first encounter with jazz? And it's obvious from the poem that it stuck with you.
It was basically through my parents, and there, of course, they had certain jazz artists that they admired and liked, and I didn't hear them playing Miles, for example. This had references to a lot of people in it, but that whole thing with Dizzy and moving into the birth of the cool and Ellington and all of those things, I guess my first exposure was at home in the family through them. They really did like those jazz artists.
because that poem really resonated with me for my own interests as a poet and performance poet. It keeps the humanity of the musicians while still talking about some of the issues that they faced. Whereas a lot of people, when they write a jazz poem, they focus on they focus on it as if they were born with the thought in their head that they were going to be addicted to drugs. Right. And the music becomes secondary in the poem. But your poems definitely do not do that. You have their humanity, you have their creativity, and this thing happened. It wasn't a premeditated anything. And I just want you to know that, because there's a lot of people who write jazz related poetry and they don't do that. It's as if the musicians have no soul. All they are is their music and their bad times. So I just wanted to let you know that. You had a line in the poem that you read after that one, after the birth of the cool. The children make heroes of soldiers who can't smell their blood. I was like, wow. There's such a deepness to that line.
Yeah.
A real, and it just sort of sinks in. And when it sinks in, it's like, it captures the horror of it without being gory. That poem, the whole poem, captures the horror without being a gory poem. And it's really, your work is extremely, there's a deepness there that I really haven't heard in a while. It's a well thought out way to get into the emotional side of a reader or a listener. And like I said, I can't wait for your book.
Well, I do strive to bring the reader into the work and feel what is there and feel like the writer, actually. In other words, become the writer, because that's what you strive for. I'll put it that way. I don't know how I ever always accomplish it, but that is what you strive for. It's like, oh, that's exactly the way I feel. That's exactly what I believe, but I just didn't have the words. Those kinds of feelings, and you want them to be like, if I had been able to write about it, I would have written that. In other words, reader and writer exchange places.
Wonderful, wonderful.
You always strive for that, whether you're honest or not. So,
your book.
Are there any questions? I mean, that any others may have? I don't know.
I don't have a question, Carolyn, but I'd like to say something. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
It's Beverly. So I'm going to try not to cry. But I admire you so much. And I know how hard you work to articulate your feelings and the depth of your feelings. And I loved listening to these poems. And I've actually not listened to a reading of yours ever. I remember sitting at your dining room table reading some and being in awe. One of the things that EJ made me think about was that there is a subtlety to your poetry, I think. Things don't hit you in your face until you go, oh, that's what she meant. And it grabs you. These aren't poems that are going to leave your experience. So I'm just glad you're my cousin, because I think you're really cool. But I also appreciate your talent, and I congratulate you on your work, and I'm really excited to get your book.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I really do.
Abby, you have any questions?
Well,
Actually, Amanda has her hand up.
Oh,
Oh.
okay.
DJ.
Go ahead, Amanda. Sorry.
That's okay. Also not a question. But yeah, Carolyn, this is the first time I've ever heard your poetry, and it was such an honor. The poem, I mean, all of them were beautiful, but the way you described the lightning bugs was so beautiful and really stuck with me, especially saying like, as a Black child, this is for us. These creatures in nature, this is our moment to adorn ourselves. And I think thinking about just being in my backyard as a kid and being excited that the lightning bugs were out, and being a biracial kid and not feeling like I fit in anywhere, even though, we have a different childhood experience, it still really stuck with me and resonated with me. So I'm also glad that we're related.
And because these are cousins from Philadelphia, that reflection, I was trying to do a sign anyway. It was a throwback to my experiences in Philadelphia.
Yes.
Oh, well, then even
Yes.
more.
That's probably remember that because I was thinking about catching those lightning bugs on the street. So, yep.
Abby?
Well, I was so moved by what you were reading. But during I felt that there were 2 points when you mentioned that, the poems that you had written before, but the relevancy is always there because the essence of what you're writing about is unfortunately ongoing, and it's the connection is still there. It's very profound. I mean, gorillas in the mist and all that. But also your comment about when you're describing your son's passing, and how a poet has to realize that words are inadequate, but must be created. Words must be created and to connect and reconnect and establish that that feeling. And that's I'm not sure I'm making anything clear, but I was so deeply moved by what you were reading.
Thank you.
Oh,
It is a struggle to find words to paint emotions, and it took me a long time. Because I couldn't find the words. I tried early on, but it didn't work. And you really have to relive the experience when you write about it. And so it was very like, you do it for a while and you have to leave it, and you have to come back, you back and forth, just like a painter runs up and back, back and forth when he's trying to do a work of art. But it's you don't ever think you have the words, and then finally some do. You find them under a rock somewhere, and then you attempt to put them together. And so what you're doing is you're immersing yourself in the grief and the really devastating experience, but you also at the same time are attempting to achieve some distance so that you can write about it. It's very hard to explain. And you just, once you start, you perhaps can continue, but it's something that has to percolate, if you will, for a while, because the poems I attempted to write after the first year were just so woefully missed the mark. I didn't even, they were just, I wasn't ready to write about it. I wasn't ready to write about it. It's basically.
Abdul?
Oh, yes, I have a comment and a question. I wanted to congratulate you on this lovely reading, and also as a long time reader of your work, I just wanted to say publicly how much I admire the wide range of influences that is apparent in your work. I know that EJ mentioned cinematic, which I agree your work is richly visual and it immediately grabs us in, but also musical. Like I was just noting at the silences and pauses that you kind of weave into your work where it's we're kind of our ears are hanging on to both the words that are said and also unsaid. Um, and I just love the wide range. I don't get that from many poets. You know, we have the humor in Feeling Red. We have sort of the protest poems. We have the lyric. Um, we have the elegy. We have the formal innovations. So I just want to say how proud of you I am and how delighted I am to
I appreciate that. I
cons
appreciate all of your
yeah,
comments.
yes. So my question is, can you talk a little bit about your process, given that you have such a wide um, canvas, toolbox, you have wide-ranging interest. Like how do you go about making your poems?
Well, as I explained initially, I mean, in the beginning, um, I started off with older poems. So I dug down in my pile. And but I felt were relevant to right now, and I hope they remain relevant. Um, so all along, in one reading, you got to hear a smattering from different periods of time and different things were going on. But typically, I, I, there's certain things that strike your fancy or that you hear. It may be a conversation on overhearing a conversation on the train and people using certain language that takes you someplace. But I think one of the big things that happens initially as a backdrop, I mean, for me, that has to happen, is reading other writers. I think it's important if you're going to write to read other writers, and I like to be exposed to different kinds of writers. And that feeds into whatever idea comes to mind or interest I have in writing about. Um, I um, I have I have woven together different styles and presentations and stories that they stay in here. They stay at your core kind of, and they kind of mesh and weave a fabric so that you are able to take your idea or your conceptual framework and draw upon those different techniques that other writers have used or that kind of thing. So I also think it's important we write to rewrite. I think that it's important to, revision is a big part of the work. And the question always looms for a writer, as all of you know. So when is the poem finished? I mean, you can rewrite forever.
Never. It's never finished.
When in the world, and that is really something you just have to gain some experience with, because sometimes you still don't know. You can go back and you've seen legendary writers go back and redo something, and many times it's worse than what it was in the beginning. I mean, you like the initial product. And so it's really kind of you have to draw upon your experience and get the feel for when in the world does it end, and also ending a poem. Many times in workshop, Abdul, as you know, and probably EJ too, we write past the ending of the poem.
Mm-hmm.
And people, okay, the ending is up here. You are still talking. I mean, so all of these things are just, it takes time to to develop that and fine tune it and hone it. And I'm still working on it, Abdul. Thanks for the question.
Monique?
Hi, Carolyn. Thank you so much for your work. I was thrilled as a fellow poet to see so many of my own themes revisited. So I was going to ask you about form, because I heard you mention the cento, a pantoum, some sonnets, and I wanted to ask you what your relationship is to form and how that works in terms of the writing process. But also I noticed maybe a different musical lilt in the sense that you included so many songs, so many lyrics to so many songs in
Well,
your
that was in
poem.
Feeling Red.
Well, there was Red, and there was a couple other references to the titles of songs or to the lyrics.
Oh, yes,
Um,
spirituals. Yes, yeah.
yeah, so I was
Yeah.
interested in that musical inclusion. And last but not least, since my partner Ahmed Abdullah is a jazz musician and he's right here on the call under One Breath Rising, I was going to ask him what his take on the jazz poem was. So those are my three questions. Thank you.
Right. Okay. I was actually introduced to form in grad school, and we went kicking and screaming towards it because we accused our instructor as forcing us into writing bad poems because we didn't want to use form much.
Mm.
And but the instructors I had, in grad school at that level were formal. Their backgrounds were, most of them, not all, but most, was it was a formal background. So I was exposed to a lot of different forms as opposed to other programs where you may not be at all, because they strongly believed in form. They believe you got your best poems from form.
Mhm.
And sometimes that does pan out that way. Of course, you have to bring your ideas to it, but sometimes it lends the format that you select, and that's another thing. You want to be able to select the form that enhances the presentation of what you're talking about. And like in the instance of the pantoum, you notice there's a lot of repeating. How the second and fourth line are repeated, first and third in the subsequent stanza. Well,
Right.
that is, I wanted to repeat in that poem because of the nature of what I was talking about. So I thought the pantoum would lend itself to
Yeah,
that thing.
to the spiritual. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I dealt with it. But I find myself falling into sonnets a lot, I guess because we're trying to compress a lot in a poem. I mean, it's about compression, writing poetry, and the sonnet is 14 lines, and they have other requirements to really be a real sonnet that I try to loosely do, but I find that it captures best because it is relatively short, what I'm trying to express. And so, but yeah, I was introduced to it, and a lot of, because my major, I didn't go into creative writing. I didn't study creative writing. I didn't major in English, none of that in undergrad in college. So my writing in this area really was developed at the graduate level. And, it's a challenge to come to something so late. But I mean, to start something that was new, that was really new. I'm not even sure I knew what creative writing was when I started the program, but I mean, I liked poetry and I liked literature, and so I wanted to do it. So that's what I did. But but a lot of people don't study form at that level because they've had it already. Well, I hadn't, and these teachers wanted to emphasize it, and that's what they did. I mean, that was their background, so that's what they brought, and so they exposed us to it. You know, I've talked to people in many other programs, and they said, "Oh no, we didn't do much of that." But it may have been assumed. See, I was I was not at it was a satellite campus. A lot of the students were working
Mm-hmm.
or doing other things or had family. They, you know, it wasn't like college, you know, students just concentrating on their work. So the instructors sort of, you know, um, addressed their developed their strategy for getting, you know, teaching us. Our backgrounds were so varied, I'll put it that way. So most of us may not have had form in college at all, exposure to. We may have read stuff, but we didn't, you know. These people did. And I know American U and many of the others, Wilson, they didn't concentrate. The people I knew who were in those programs really didn't concentrate on. But I just happened to have had teachers who had formal, their style was formal,
Right.
you know. So that's basically what where the exposure came, you know, for me.
Thank you.
I would I want to say that I do appreciate your work, and as EJ said, I was actually listening to your work without looking at you reading it, and I did get all kinds of visual images. As so, the cinematic quality is actually I confirm it as well. It was something that's very special about your writing that does evoke real visual images. I wanted to ask a question. Given that we are having now what someone remarked was a peaceful transition to chaos coming into this country, what do you think would be the role of the poet in documenting these next few years that we are going to experience? I know that you were speaking about using the poems that you read earlier as being indications of where you were at a particular time and where this country was at. But I think that we're going into some some territory that we've never been in before. And what do you think is the role of the poet, or what would be your role in documenting this peaceful transition to chaos?
Well, you know, I think it's very important to have writers document what is going on in the period of time when they are on this earth. Yes, you want to write poetry that lasts forever. In other words, that's another thing we were taught was a sign of a good poem. In other words, if it is something that is read a century later, they are able to glean something forward and see from it, and 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 have and it's couched in such a way or written in such a way that the message is just eternal. However, so I think that, but if writers don't document what's going on in a certain period of time, people will look back and will not know or get the feel for what it was like during that era. And I think that that's important. Poetry is designed to really expand your mind. So documenting, expanding your mind, and once your mind it starts to expand, it never contracts and goes back to that original place. So you really want, you know, you want to do that. You want to expand minds, you want to document what's going on in the era without making it so peculiar to that time that nobody would ever read it 50 years later. But you know, like we're reading people like, you know, oh my goodness, all kinds of folks. You know, we're still reading Langston Hughes, or we're still reading, you know, Ellison, all these people. And their work is relevant because of the way they captured what they captured. So I guess in answer to your question, yes, it's essential and important that we document. And I'm just saying, a writer has to keep in mind, in addition to documenting, that they don't make it so peculiar that it's only peculiar to that time and can't be understood or even, evoke thought many years later. So you have to keep those elements in mind when you're writing. And yeah, I agree with. I still agree with those from the Black arts movement that and they believe that. And I'm so thankful that they did, because they wrote in such a way that gave us the zeitgeist of the times, but at the cultural zeitgeist of the times. But they also wrote poems that are everlasting, that we will always glean something from, and will evoke emotion and passion. I think all of those things are very important.
Thank you.
That was an interesting question, Ahmed.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting question. Yeah, I always think of the poet. I always think of the poet as and artists in general. That we prevent the erasure.
Yeah.
We prevent the erasure because we as a poet, we focus on we focus on the minor things. We keep those things alive, and that prevents the erasure.
Right. And that's why when this artwork that inspired that first poem, Caught in the Erasure, there is that, and we know that is the push to move us towards invisibility, so that nobody is aware that we even existed. So yeah, we have some work to do. Definitely.
That's true. So true. Well, Carolyn, I want to really thank you for blessing us this afternoon with your work. I mean, your work is just so beautiful. Really, so beautiful. And it has this underlying current of hope. It's no matter what the subject is, it has a current of hope in it.
Oh, that makes me feel really good.
And you pick up on that, So I want to thank everybody that came. Thank your cousins for us for signing in. They both had to leave, but thank them so much for coming and sitting with us this afternoon. I wanted to tell everybody that next month we're going to have Cornelius Eady.
Okay. All right.
All right. So please, y'all, look for our little notice that we send out and register to show some support to Cornelius. He'll be with us on Sunday, February 9th.
February 9th. Okay.
February 9th. And we surely hope that you will be able to make that. I want to give thanks to our sponsors, the Brooklyn Arts Council, Poets and Writers, the Park Slope Civic Council, the 440 Art Gallery, the Garner Glazer Foundation, our individual donors, and our audience for making this program possible. So again, thank you everyone for coming this afternoon and listening to Carolyn's wonderful work. And Carolyn, send us an email when the book is coming out. We will
do that.
Put it up on our website that as one of our readers, you're part of the One Breath family now. So, just let us know. Because I know some of us want to get a copy. But in the library. Okay.
And I do appreciate you allowing me to come into this community and share my words. And it has been such a pleasure to meet all of you. And I will definitely be in touch. Okay.
Okay. You have my email. So, just let us know. We will definitely put it up on our website when your book is coming out. It was wonderful to hear you and wonderful to give you to support your art. To support your art.
Thank you and others for doing this and bringing this, setting up this forum and working to keep it going. and presenting writers to the community. Thank you for doing that work. And that is so important. I mean, it really is, because, you know, that's the biggest thing, as the question the gentleman asked here, that's another thing. We want to get the work out, and we want to share it with people so that it can stimulate things, so we all can stimulate each other's thinking, you know.
Mhm.
That feeds also into perpetuating this whole thing that we're trying to do. So thank you for this forum. I really appreciate it, because I know it takes some work.
You are so welcome.
Oh,
Again, thank you, everyone. And I want everyone to enjoy the rest of your day and have a wonderful week. The weather's supposed to be better.
Yes.
Not as cold,
yeah.
better. Okay. They don't say nothing about no snow or nothing coming. So, better.
We start for the next week.
It's better.
You all have a good week and a good year.
You
Okay.
too.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
Okay.
much.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, CJ.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.